Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is doing okay. It's raining in the Virgin Islands. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to eConnect or Educators Connect Admin Tutorial. Before we start with our kick-off for our weekly speaking engagement in our portal, I'd like to give you an opening prayer first. And this is how it goes. Lord God, thank you for providing us with the ability to gain new skills and broaden our knowledge. Thank you for helping us survive under the challenging times of COVID-19 pandemic. We lay out all of our expectations in front of you. Lord, please be with us throughout this session. In the name of Jesus Christ, this we pray. Amen. Once again, good evening, everyone. Good evening to those who are watching with us in YouTube. And of course, in my Facebook and in eConnect or Educators Connect platform. Tonight, I am your program moderator, Christina Marie Senosa, U.S. Virgin Islands State Teacher of the Year 2022. Before we go on with our formal discussion tonight, I am going to tell you something more about this platform first. Social media is a common lounge for novice and even seasoned teachers. We must face the fact that after working long hours, educators are more connected in social media platforms rather than on their work emails. Thus, this is the perfect place to exhibit educators' connectivity. This is why Educators Connect was born. As home becomes schools, from kindergarten schools to elementary schools, even in middle schools, and of course, in high schools, and adult continuing education schools. We educators have struggled a lot with classroom apps and strategies. we have this notion of expectation versus reality. That's why this platform was created. And these are the following sustainable goals. Welcome again to our group for educators, eConnect or Educators Connect. This is Christina Marie Sinosa, together with my co-administrator, Melvin Ledesma, and I will be your moderator for tonight's program. eConnect, of course, is a social media platform. Educators in this page or group will be sharing their teacher-made digital, electronic, and creative resources for other educators to use in their respective classrooms, whether we are in a fully virtual or blended learning environment. These classrooms of ours will be full of resources and strategies to share to help educators to have a satisfying, electrifying, and engaging learning environment with other like-minded professionals. So all in all, eConnect is our classroom laboratories for us to be more equitable with those classroom resources to ignite the teaching and learning situation in the classroom. So tonight, join us as our speaker or our guest today will be sharing with you the layouting of certificates and classroom observation strategies through this portal of ours. But before that, let me read to you his bio. Our speaker this evening is a graduate of Bachelor of Secondary Education major in Mathematics and Master of Arts in Mathematics at the Ateneo de Zamboanga University. Currently, he is taking a PhD in Science Education major in Mathematics and expected to finish his academic subjects this summer. He began his teaching career as a college instructor at ADZU, the same university where he earned his bachelor's degree. After a year, he moved to Don Pablo Lorenzo Memorial High School, where he worked as a math teacher in the school's STEM program for 3 years. During these years, he joined and won in several instructional materials making contests in the entire Zamboanga City division. In the year 2013, he was awarded as the Zamboanga's Mr. Educator. While teaching in the public school, Mr. Ledesma is one of the ambassadors of the Dynamic Learning Program of the Philippines, wherein he trains teachers in the different parts of the country. He also published a book called Mathematics Learning Portfolio for Grade 8 with Vibal Publishing Incorporated. By 2016, he was appointed as the coordinator of DPL MHS Standalone Senior High School. During his stay in the senior high school department, he was recognized as the first ever most outstanding senior high school teacher and the most outstanding grade 11 teacher in the entire Zamboanga City Division. In the year 2018, he was recognized as the most inspiring teacher of the Republic of the Philippines. Currently, Mr. Ledesma is connected at Bertha Shibu Scholte Middle School as the chairperson of the mathematics department. He continuously excels in his teaching career as an international teacher as he consecutively got distinguished rating in their teacher year-end evaluation. Ladies and gentlemen, give a hand to Mr. Melvin Ledesma. I'm now going to unshare my screen. Mr. Ledesma, good evening and welcome to eConnect tutorial. This is our kick-off for tonight. How do
Good
you
evening,
feel?
everyone. Good evening, everyone. Actually, I'm a bit nervous. A bit nervous or really nervous. Let me say I'm really nervous.
Okay.
So for how many probably years of being idle with giving trainings with teachers, this is again I'm back to my calling to do this activity. But it's actually my pleasure to be here with you. So I hope you will be learning something from me. So actually, I will be presenting my own classroom observation ideas. It's not actually the one that I got from the internet or somewhere else. It's actually my personal classroom strategies, especially when we are doing classroom observations. So, would you like me to
Thank you,
share my
Mr.
screen?
Ledesma.
Okay, Miss Ma'am
Yeah, you
Sanosa.
can. Actually, I just would like to say good evening to our watchers or to our viewers. A lot of you are viewing in YouTube and in Facebook and in eConnect. So, USVI community are also with us. The Filipino and the Asian communities are also with us. I am now giving you the floor, Mr. Ledesma. I'll be out for a while. Go ahead.
Okay. So, once again, Ma'am Sanosa, do you see my screen? I am actually sharing my screen now. Let me try to share it back. Just give me a few seconds. Okay. So, let me see if I am sharing my screen. Ma'am Sanosa, I'm actually trying to share my screen, but I don't see my screen in my Facebook Live. Okay, it's in here now. So, once again, good evening to those who are in USA and to the Philippines. Good morning, everyone. So I'm actually tasked to give session on classroom observation ideas, and also before I end this presentation, I will be also doing some presentation in how to lay out certificates, posters, and some other stuff for your classroom instructional material things. So this will be actually my objective for tonight. I'll be talking about or demonstrating my personal strategies. As I've told you a while ago, this is not anyone's strategy. So probably this will be effective or effective in my personal performance, but then probably in your own way, you might consider to somehow add something or change something on some of the parts of these ideas. And also at the end of this presentation, I will be demonstrating how to create certificates, posters, invites using Publisher and or Microsoft PowerPoint. So this will be my main objective for tonight's presentation. So before we start, maybe I will just give around siguro 10 seconds to everyone to answer this question. What are your strategies on the following parts of the lesson? So how do you conduct your lesson? So can you please type in your answers in our meeting chat probably for 10 seconds? So we do have, I actually divided the a lesson into four parts. The first one is introduction, the part where you stimulate students' interest. And then the second part will be lesson presentation. And then the formative assessment part. And then we also have the lesson conclusion. So what do you do usually in your lesson presentation given these parts of the lesson? I am not sure if I can see your responses in our Facebook Live, but then, so I hope you will be able to, think of things that you are doing in your classroom that might you want to compare later on if you are also doing the same thing, as I will be presenting my own strategy or my own idea on how to do my classroom observation lesson. So the reason why I decided to give this session is I want to share my ways on how do I prepare for classroom observations. So because I know usually it's really a big thing for especially for international teachers doing the classroom observation because it is 60% of our year-end evaluation. So in my context or in our context in US Virgin Islands, the following criteria are actually being observed during classroom observations. I am not sure, but I think some of these criteria are also similar to the things that you are um, having, especially in the Philippines, because I think they're common. So for the first one, we do have the creating an environment of respect and rapport, and then establishing a culture for learning, managing classroom procedures, managing student behavior, organizing physical space, communicating with students, using questioning and discussion techniques, engaging students in learning, using assessments in instruction, and demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness. Actually, these are the criteria found in our evaluation tool for classroom observation when our administrators are doing classroom observation. So they are using this at a certain tool. It's actually a scale. Let me try to look for it. Okay. So it's a scale from 1 to 4, having 0 as not observed, and then we also have 1 being unsatisfactory. You have basic for 2, 3 for proficient, and then 4 for distinguished. So for every criteria there is a scale. So wherein our assistant principal will be doing an evaluation of each part of the criteria, and then at the bottom of this scale there should be the evidence why did our assistant principal rated that way on that certain criteria. Okay, so this is how we our classroom observation done. So that's where I based my presentation. So my idea of classroom observation, before I do prepare my lesson, I have to first look at what tool they are using in evaluating our performance doing the classroom observation, because I that is the way on how to attack and what to prepare, to consider what to prepare, not only the materials but also your aspect or other aspects as teacher. So these are the following, so in our classroom observation but not limited to. So now let's go on one by one to this criteria. The first one is creating an environment of respect and rapport. So what are the things that our assistant principal or administrators are looking at when we are doing our classroom observation? For this criteria, they are actually looking at the classroom interactions among students and teachers, not only some students, but it should be individual students with the teacher, are expected to have high interactions. So reflecting genuine warmth and caring and sensitivity to students' cultures and levels of development. So students themselves ensure high levels of civility among members of the class. So this is the first criteria that you can find in our evaluation tool, and which is actually similar to the evaluation tool that the Philippine Department of Education is using. So also, we do have establishing a culture for learning. So for this criteria, it's more of student energy and teacher passion in teaching the subject. So for subject, create a culture for learning in which everyone shares a belief in the importance of the subject, and all students hold themselves to high standards of performance. For example, by initiating improvements to their work. So it's one of the criteria as well. The next one is we have managing classroom procedures. So for managing classroom procedures, it's more of students' contribution to the classroom routines and procedures for transitions, handling of supplies, and performance of non-instructional duties. So it's more of involvement of your students with the routine and procedures of the classroom. So in here, I actually had an experience with this part, and my assistant principal told me that, in order for you to get high score in this particular criteria, at the beginning of the school year, you have to in actually involve or make part of your classroom routine the things that students should do when they are doing group activities. So it should be students, somebody will be assigned to get the materials whenever you do group activities. So, and also the group routines and procedures. So what do they do they are involved in group activities, when they are having formative assessments, or when you start your lesson. So that's actually what the assistant principal or our administrator is looking at this particular criteria. And the next one is managing student behavior. This is actually more of the classroom management. So the standards of conduct should be cleared. So sometimes, in our case, all the classroom policies and procedures are posted in our classroom. So that with evidence of student participation in setting them should be observed. And teachers' monitoring of student behavior is subtle and preventive. And teachers' response to students' misbehavior is sensitive to individual student needs. So this is how our administrators are looking at during the classroom observation for this certain criteria. The next one is organizing physical space. So for organizing physical space, it's the classroom is safe, ensures the classroom of the physical environment ensures the learning of all students, including those with special needs. So students contribute to the use of the adaptation of the physical environment to advanced learning. So in this particular criteria was not used during the virtual observation, I mean, because accordingly we are not in our own classroom. But then take note, it's not only the environment of your classroom space is being observed, it is also how you integrate your technology in using your lesson. So the technology integration comes in with the organizing physical space criteria. Next is the communicating with students. So expectations for learning directions and procedures and explanations of content are clear to students. So what later on I will be showing you or sharing with you my strategy on how do I do this certain criteria, or how am I able to meet this criteria. So teachers' oral and written communication is clear and expressive, appropriate to students' cultures and levels of development, and anticipates possible student misconceptions. So students are given opportunities to use appropriate standard English and terminology, and I highlighted here, as well as local dialects and expressions to help them be successful in using each in the appropriate settings. So in my case, since I am actually teaching ESL group, sometimes I do have one assigned person in the class who speaks English well, and then I am the one who is giving them instruction. And then what they're doing when they're now in their respective groups, they're using their own dialect in communicating with each other, because most of my students are not English speakers. So some of them are cannot really communicate well in English. So the one who is facilitating them, since I cannot speak their own language, so I am communicating with those people who are English speakers at the same time speak their own language. So I group them according to the language they speak. And then when they are already in their groups, they're speaking using their own dialect in expressing their own selves so that learning will be observed and successful. Also, using questioning and discussion techniques. So questions reflect the expectations and are culturally and developmentally appropriate. So the term culturally, because we are um, we are observing cultural centered education in the US Virgin Islands, and actually we are still working on that to be part of our curriculum. So students formulate many of the high level questions and ensure that all voices are heard. So it should be not only same students will be called during classroom observation. Make sure you will be able to call everyone. So I actually have a strategy on how to do this one. Later on, I will be sharing it with you. And also, I have engaging students in learning. So this is another criteria. So students are intellectually engaged throughout the lesson in significant learning and make material contributions to the activities. So student groupings and materials. So the lesson is adapted as needed to the needs of individuals, and the structure and pacing allow for students reflection and closure. So it's more of how students engage in your activity. So it's not only during the group activities should they be engaged. It should be all throughout your classroom observation lesson. They should be engaged in any way. So this is how our administration observe us during our for this criteria. And using assessment in instruction, assessment is used in a sophisticated manner in instruction. So through student involvement in establishing the assessment criteria. So it's more of how do you use your assessment from the beginning of your instruction down to the lesson conclusion, because assessment are observed by our administrator. How do you use your formative assessment with the students? How do you use questioning techniques, and also self-assessment by students and monitoring of their own progress and teachers are actually highly encouraged for during classroom observation. And then we also have demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness. This is one of my unforgettable criteria, because one of my one of my observations before I had with my administrator, she rated me not observed for this particular criteria, where in fact I was able to figure out, since as I told you, I am looking at the criteria first before I do my demonstration to make sure that I was able to meet all criteria, and at least will be able to have a satisfactory performance during classroom observation. So when she told me that I got not observed rating for this particular criteria, I gave her the scenario wherein students had the opportunity, to enhance their own learning, or teachers seizes an opportunity to enhance learning of the students, and then building a spontaneous event or student interest. So wherein actually she agreed that yes, that actually happened. So that was considered, and she rated me certain score for this particular criteria. So for flexibility and responsiveness, it is more of according to my administrator, more of how were you able to address certain unclear ideas from the students, wherein you gave questions and then students were not able to answer the question, and then there had an opportunity for you to reteach that certain concept. So that is where flexibility and demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness comes in. So that is also one of the criteria that our administrator is observing from us during classroom observation. And again, these are the 10 criteria that in our context that our administrators are looking at during classroom observation. But I believe these criteria are not are actually similar to the criteria that the teachers or administrators in the Philippines are using. So more of how do you manage your classroom while doing your lesson presentation. So this time, so after I look at the criteria, so I followed the following steps in preparing my lesson. So now after I be able to, to refresh the criteria that our administrators are looking at during the classroom observation, I am following the steps here in coming up with my lesson. First, I make sure that my objective or objectives is or are attainable in 45 to 50 minutes. Why 45 to 50 minutes when in fact we are having 1 hour classroom instruction? My 15 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes extra time, I distribute them to all the other parts of the lesson so that that would be the extra time that students would be able to, because sometimes we are not able to follow the time allotment for a certain activity. So I make sure that I have extra time for each part of the lesson so that I will be able to maximize the 1 hour classroom observation time. And make sure I include the learner's behavior. These are actually the parts of the objective, the learner's behavior wherein students will be able to do something. So this is the main objective. The condition. So for example, given 10 questions, given out of four problems. So that's actually the context of mastery. And also the level of accuracy for your objective. How many percent are you expecting your students to meet for this certain lesson or for this certain objective? So that's the first step. After that, I plan my lesson. I look at LDS because Lesson Design Studio in our context, it's our online platform for lesson plans. Let me share with you our sample lesson plan. So this is the sample. This is the lesson plan website wherein we put in our lesson plans in here. So the lesson plans that I had all the way back from 2019-2020 are still in here. They're still present. And you'll be able to see all the lesson plans that we had for the entire time we had with school year 2020-2021. So these are all the lesson plans. So in Lesson Design Studio, let me pick one lesson. You will be able to see since we are having this certain, we are using standards, so we are referring these standards to our pacing guide. And then this is the one that I was telling you, the three parts of lesson objective: the learner's behavior, mastery of objective, and the criteria or the level of accuracy. So I am actually marking them out first. And then for the lesson detail, if you can see, there are different parts of the lesson here. We have teacher directed whole class instruction, teacher directed small groups, and student directed groups. So if you can see, I have a space for teacher-directed small groups because I wasn't able to use this certain mode of teaching for this lesson. But I had the first one and the second one and the third one. So in this part of my step, I usually think of what activities should I be doing for my lesson for this certain class observation. So I decide whether it should be teacher-directed whole class instruction, which is the traditional way, the teacher-directed small groups, and the student-directed groups. So the difference between the second and the third are the second one is it's the teacher who is controlling the pace of the lesson with the students being in their own groups. While for the student directed groups, it's more of students are working on with their teams and then trying to work on something with a given task by the teacher. So it's more of student centered activity compared to the teacher-directed small groups. But for the teacher-directed whole class instruction, it's more of the traditional way. So how do you start your lesson? Then after that, your the lesson presentation, and then how do you do your assessment, and then checking of their understanding and then assessment. So this is the second step that I'm doing. I'm looking at what certain instructional mode should I be doing for this lesson? And after that, this suggestion in here, the third, the yellow box, it's the suggestion of my assistant principal that whenever you do activity for classroom, especially for classroom observation, you start with involving everyone in your lesson. So that's where, you know, you present your lesson, the stimulating activity is done, so it's for everyone. And then after that, you go to small groups, and then for small groups, that would be wherein students will be working on in their groups. It could either be teacher directed or student directed. And then after that, they will be working again, going back to the entire class. Probably you will be sharing your abstraction, or you will be doing abstraction in this particular level. And then going back to individual setup wherein students will be doing their assessment or probably their exit ticket. Okay, so this is the suggestion of my assistant principal when I was doing my classroom observation. Next is the last one, sorry. The last one was to consider the students with special needs in planning your lesson. So in our context for US Virgin Islands, we do have here the accommodations and modifications. So this is where our students are being considered, those with special needs who need extra accommodation in doing their in attending my lesson, or modification for a certain level. So it's really part of our instruction, so that's why it's also one way to consider to um, the students with special needs in planning your lesson. So if ever you will be doing small groups, for example, for the ESL group, those students with cannot really speak well English well. So you might consider some students who are really good speakers, English speakers, might probably be assigned in every group so that they will be the one who will be facilitating the discussion. Okay, so that's how I consider or I prepare my lesson. So once again, the first thing is I have to make sure that the objective is attainable in 45 to 50 minutes. So if the objective or if the lesson is too what is this? Too large, chunk it down, narrow it down in such a way that you will be doing that for 45 to 50 minutes only. So the other 10 to 15 minutes are extra time for you to, you know, adjust when it's needed. The second one is decide which instructional mode that you will be using. So in here, it's already in this part of your planning, you also think of the activities that they will be doing, the materials that you will be using, the technology, the platform that you will be using for the activities, the assessment that you'll be using. And the last one is you have to consider also the special needs. That also goes hand on hand with the instructional mode. So if you will be planning to put them in small groups, make sure that these students will not be left out when they're already in their groups. The next one is, now let me share with you my personal strategies on how do I do my classroom observation. So for the introduction or stimulating the interest of the students, I do trivia of the day. Sometimes I do pre-test using the following online platforms. And there were also times that I did solicit ideas. I posted a word, or for example, the main concept of my lesson, and then I asked students to, you know, define on their own or share something what they know about that certain idea on an online platform. If we were during that time we were doing online classes. And when we were doing in-person activity, I provide them small piece of paper wherein they can write their answers, and then they will be going to the board and post their responses on that certain question. So this is my way on how to do the introduction of, or how I stimulate student interest for my classroom observation. Take note also, in doing this activity, you have to make sure that it will only be good for at most 3 minutes. So because if you will be going beyond this time, you might probably be eating some of your other time for your for the other activities of your lesson. So make sure that you are really particular of your or you are really time conscious when you are doing classroom observation, because that is only one of the frustrations of the teachers, that they are not able to finish the classroom presentation. It's because they lack time, or they were not able to do all the activities intended for that certain day. So be particular of the time when you are doing each part of the lesson, when you are doing your classroom observation. So later on, I will be showing you a sample of my introduction wherein I am stimulating student interest before we start our lesson discussion. The next part is during the lesson presentation. So in here, it's actually where I told you that you have to decide which instructional mode you will be using for that certain lesson. So whether you will be using teacher directed or whole class instruction, or the what we call the traditional way. And then we also have the teacher directed groups and the student directed group. So you might consider to think first of these things. So this is my strategy. I have to look at first, what should I do? Should I be using whole class instruction or student directed group? So most of the time I'm actually using two of them. So I have a note at the bottom that you can use more than one mode of instruction for a certain class. So it's not only that you are to choose one of them. Actually, you can use all of them at the same time, or in one lesson. But then I usually use two of them, the first and the last part. So it's more of teacher-directed whole class instruction and the student-directed groups. So this is my common mode of instructions that I'm using in my classroom observations. And then after that, when I am doing small group, I make sure that instructions must be provided in both written and verbal forms. Remember, in one of the criteria that I have mentioned a while ago, um, I think that is communication with students. This is the suggestion of my assistant principal when I was in my first year of teaching here. So she told me that next time, if you want to give instruction to students, because I have my own accent and my students have their own accent, they cannot understand me well. So in order for you to pacify that conflict, try to do written and verbal form of instruction so that students can follow you while you are giving the instruction. That's one way. Next is assign tasks for each member. So I do usually ask them to assign who will be the team leader, the timekeeper, the secretary. Okay, so usually I do four persons in a group when I'm doing um, think pair share, and then after think pair share with the sharing, it's more of the big group already. So it will be two groups will be combined with the other group. So it's more of combining groups, and then I am asking them to assign for that four members in the group. I am asking them to assign their own role. So they have to select who will be their team leader, who will be keeping the time or will be checking the time if it's already time. And then we do also have the secretary who will be writing down the answers of everyone. I make sure that everyone is working. And also the last one is because I actually have the peace officer for each group, because when I was still starting, everyone was really excited. Everyone is really, everyone at their peak, shouting and all. So I make sure that one of them will be the peace officer, because one of my ways on how to control the noise inside my classroom is I give them points for those students who will be consistently be doing their activity in a quiet manner. So if they will be what is this? They will be working on with their teams and then they were really noisy. So I am deducting, actually not deducting points from the overall, but it's a warning that if you will be reaching 3 warnings, then therefore you will not be able to get these plus points. So that's how I do. am controlling students' noise inside my classroom during class activities or group activities. I use timers most of the time so that I will be able to control the flow of my lesson with respect to the time allotment of each activity. So later on in my sample PowerPoint presentation, you'll be able to see that in each slide, I do have timer for students to follow, especially when they are working on with group activities. If you want to maximize the time, think of strategies where students can present their outputs all together. So I am not actually asking them to present one by one or one group by group because it actually eats most of my time. So what I'm doing is I am asking them to share their answers on that certain question because every group has different tasks. So each one of them will not have the same activities, or I mean the same questions. So they will be working on it separately. And then if they will be posting their answers, so other groups will not be able, to copy their answers or will not be able to cheat because each one of them has as different questions. So I am using usually collaboration board Nearpad wherein students will be typing in their answers and then it will be uploaded there and everyone will be able to see. So later on I will be showing you a sample of that one. And then assess students' experience and learning content towards the activity. So in order for you to know how did they feel during the class activity, if you will be doing the same thing in the next classroom observation or next classroom setup, you have to assess their experience. So how did they do? How did you feel? Did you enjoy? Did you encounter any difficulty in completing the task? If yes, how did you overcome that certain what is this certain difficulty? That's what I'm doing. Also, you have to assess students learning content while doing the activity. So after doing the activity, what did they learn? Did you learn something today? So, and they will be able to share it with you. And by doing this activity, you will be able to know that if the activity that you did was really effective in meeting your classroom objective. So later on, I will be sharing you sample of this assessing students' experience and learning content. Next one is when doing abstraction presentation, because in my classroom observation, I make sure that it's not only classroom activities or classroom activities will happen during that day. I am making sure that abstraction should also be happening on that certain day. So how do I do my classroom abstraction presentation? So you can use short clips or YouTube videos or taken from YouTube to present your lesson. So I make sure I usually download 4 to 5 minutes classroom abstraction wherein I will be able to summarize all the lessons and students will be able to check their works while doing this abstraction if they were able to get it correctly or they were able to what is this learn correctly what they're supposed to learn. So at least at the end of the classroom observation or at the end of the lesson, they will be able to realize that they did something productive for that certain day. So they learned something which is also correct on their own pace and in their own manner. And also go directly to the meat of the lesson. So if you are doing abstraction, for example, if your lesson is identifying function, so your abstraction should be about identifying functions only. It should not be going beyond. So I'm trying to make sure if videos are not videos related to that lesson is not present in YouTube, I usually make sure that I have my slides done in such a way that I am trying to um, answer the students' concern and the things that probably they will be able to asking later on. So I will be answering them in advance. So that's how I do my abstraction. So later on I'll be sharing you sample of my lesson abstraction. And then after that is assessment. For the assessment, decide whether it will be by group or individual assessment, because you can actually do group activity and that will be there for that day assessment. You can use interactive assessment tool like quizzes, Nearpad, Kahoot, and other online platforms in doing your assessment. And just make sure that you have to align your assessment activity with the objective. Make sure that if you are using quizzes, you create them, because if you just download them, some of the questions are not actually found in the things that students learn during that day. So that's why it's really important for you to review first the things that you download, in especially in giving quizzes activity, so that it will be you will be assessing something that you are supposed to assess among students. And for my lesson conclusion, I do usually use exit ticket. So the exit ticket may either be a summary of their learning for the day, like today I learned that, and then you just have to put blanks, and then they will be the one who will be continuing that probing statement. Or you can also use impression about today's experience, like that 3-2-1 chart. Rate 3 if you learn everything, or is everything is clear. 2 if there are still questions about the lesson. 1 if you did not learn at all, or you still have a lot of things that you are confused of. So you might be considering this exit ticket before you conclude your lesson. So with that, let me share with you a sample of my presentation. So these were my presentations when I did my classroom observation, two of my classroom observations. So the first one is angle relationships in two parallel lines. And I actually really indicated that it's 2-day activity, so that my assistant principal will be able to know that there will be a continuation of that lesson, because sometimes they are, Mr. Ledesma, it's not yet done. So at least they know that it's a 2-day activity. And then I do usually have my objective there. But then um, the objective can either be present in here or in the next slides, but I will be sharing it with you later on. How do I present my objective, my standard, my lesson flow, the board configuration, the essential question, and all. So I will be sharing it with you later on. So after I present the title of my topic, we do usually start with opening prayer. That's really this is really, I'm always doing this one. Why? Because when we were doing online classes, although there was a transition, 5-minute transition, but then sometimes other teachers are occupying the 5-minute transition for their lesson. So I am making sure that I allot time for students to go to the bathroom or do the bathroom break before they go to my classes. So I have classroom, sorry, I have my prayer, and then after that, my school song. It will take around 4 minutes to finish the classroom prayer, the class prayer, and the school song, just to let them allow them to go to the bathroom. And after doing that, I am now looking, presenting them the learning target of the day in this manner, wherein everything should be presented already to them, wherein they will be able to see the unit we are involved in, the standards that we are dealing with, the key vocabulary that we will be using for that day, and the agenda. This is the board configuration for the day. So how will the flow of the lesson for the day will happen. So it is actually shown to them before we start. And also the essential question, it's also present there. So you don't have to separate them in different slides. Everything can be placed in this together, because this is what my administrator is trying to look at when they are doing classroom observation. They want to see if students will be aware what will gonna happen for the entire class period. So at least for the agenda, they will be able to see, oh, so you will be doing the following activities. Okay, so although if you will be counting all of this will only be for 45 minutes, I guess, 10, 20, 30, yeah, 45 minutes. And the remaining 10 to 15 minutes, I will be distributing them to the other parts of the lesson so that, at least I will be able to meet the 1 hour class instruction period. So this is after my prayer and my school song for them to do the classroom break. So I am presenting them the learning target with the standards, the lesson unit, the key vocabulary, the agenda, and the essential question. And then now we're down to my stimulating students' interest activity. So, but sometimes I do use trivia of the day or today's trivia. I hope you're able to see it. So today's trivia wherein I am asking students for math, general math ideas wherein they are not able to encounter them in during their lesson when they were still in elementary or seventh grade or whatever. So I am presenting them something that is really new to them so that they will be, oh, I have actually met that symbol, but I really do not know what that symbol is. But other students, they already have their ideas that, oh, that's infinity. So what's with the infinity? So try to ask them, so what do you mean by infinity then? It's something that doesn't end. Do you know that infinity can be numbers, can be so whatever? So that's how they will be get intrigued with this presentation. At least they will be able to stimulate their interest about your lesson. And then now I will be presenting them that's correct. So that's actually infinity number. So that symbol usually signifies infinity or infinite numbers. So infinite represents something that is boundless or endless. So students, oh yeah, I'm correct. So other students who do not know about the symbol will be able to at least, oh, next time when I will be encountering this symbol, I know that it's infinity. And it talks about, it's more of mathematics. Okay. And then after that, after I stimulate my students' ideas or interest, I am looking at the think group share. I'm actually always using think group share or think pair share activity in my lesson. So I do have these activities done. Why? Because for think, that is actually an opportunity for the students to go individually. They have to think of a certain concept individually. And then after that, group themselves. And then after that, sharing will be for everyone. So with the suggestion of my assistant principal before, that as much as possible, you have your presentation from, small group, individual, then small group, then big group, or involving everyone. So at least I was able to meet that criteria. So in my most recent classroom observation, I had this think part of my idea of my lesson presentation, wherein students should be answering the following questions. What do they mean by corresponding angles? Consecutive interior and exterior angles, alternate interior and exterior angles, linear pair, and vertical angles based on this video. So
have two
I
lines.
am
We'll just call
actually
these two lines L and M, right?
playing the
And they're
videos,
cut by a third line,
and then
which we're going to call
students
T.
will
That's the
be trying to
transversal. It
define
transverses or cuts across those.
all those terms at the top of this video, okay? At the top of this video on their own, what do they have learned about corresponding angles, then consecutive interior and consecutive exterior. So this is a thing part where students had the opportunity to think on their own first before they will be involved or get involved with other students to do the group activity. And then next is the collaboration. If you can see, I have a timer here. That's where that's what I was actually trying to tell you a while ago, that in every part of my lesson, I do include a timer. It should be visible to them so that they will be um while looking at the questions, okay, while looking at the questions, they will be able to check if the time is running or if they're all it's almost time, so they will be wrapping up their questions. They will be trying to be as much as possible time conscious in answering the activity, because if you will just remind them, okay, 5 more minutes, students will not be, the pressure is not the same as if they are able to see the timer on the screen. So I usually have the timer on the screen shown so that students will be able to be conscious in doing this activity. That's the collaborate part of my lesson. The next one is the sharing part. It's more of each group will be given 2 minutes to share their answers in a group. I think this one is a Nearpad. I actually had a Nearpad link sent to them in their group chat. And then what they did was, as a group, the team leader, no, the secretary that time was asked to type in their responses to each of the question here, okay, from number 1 to number 10 in the collaboration board. So we did a Nearpad collaboration board for that certain activity, wherein students had the opportunity to, see the answers of the other group members. And if you will be asking me, so how did you control the changing of answers of the students of the other group? So what I did was I asked them to send first their responses on the previous activity and send them to me privately before I asked them to post their answers on the Nearpad collaboration board. So I asked them to send their responses, and so that it will actually avoid students to change their answers and copy the other group answers, because sometimes they are just dependent on certain students. So this is what I did. And also, if you can see, I also had a timer here. Students were conscious typing their answers. It should be okay at the end of 2 minutes. Your answer should be posted in the Nearpad collaboration board, and all of them are able to see it. Okay. So and then after doing that, I am not actually going to answer their correct. I mean check their answers right away. I will be processing their experience first and the content learning that they had while doing the activity. So I will be asking them like, how was the activity? What helped you answer all the items? So is there anything that you find hard to answer or follow? So they will be actually most of them, they are unmuting themselves. Mr. Ledesma, it's really hard. Mr. Ledesma, it was, I really enjoyed. I hope next time we will be doing the same activity. So this is the purpose of this part of the lesson. You really have to process students experience and also learning content, because sometimes they are not enjoying the things that you are doing in class, and then you keep on using them every day, wherein students are really finding them boring already. So it is sometimes good to sometimes ask them, are they enjoying doing these things, or did you at least find any difficulty in doing the activity? And if yes, then therefore that's the point that you have to emphasize there later on while you are doing the abstraction. The next one is abstraction part. So as I've told you, there are strategies in doing the abstraction. Sometimes I start with videos. I replay again the video, and while the video is being replayed, I am stopping it from time to time and doing more explanation, giving more examples, and then later on answer the activities that they had done or they did during the group activity. So in this example, I actually am discussing the definition of each part of or each angle relationship. And then I am at the same time answering the question of the group activity. So like corresponding angle. So based on what, if you can see, when I started turning my slides to this slide, the definition of corresponding angles is not yet shown. So what I'm doing is I'm asking them to share what do you mean by corresponding angles based on your understanding on the video. So some of them, they will be sharing, they will be telling you what did they have with them. during the time they were doing corresponding angles. And then that's the time you will be defining them properly. It's that corresponding angles are angles formed by blah blah blah, and that's correct. Angle 4 and angle 10 are corresponding angles. Next one, vertical angles are angles formed when two lines are crossed, so opposite to each other or face to face. And then actually the correct, it's 1 and number 9 are vertical angles, and so on. So this is how I'm doing my abstraction. It's not anymore, okay, our lesson for today, it's more of um let me see, I think I have a question. May question ba? Wala. Okay, so later on na lang. Okay po. So, it's more of, for the alternate interangles, for example, you can actually do the same thing. If you can see, all of the items in the group activity that they did a while ago were all answered while you are discussing your lesson. So it's more of, at least you were able to do two hits, two birds at the same time, answering the activity that they did and also doing the abstraction, because you are just, your time is limited, so you have to do everything before you will be able to jump into the next part of the lesson. So after doing that, I'm now down to exit ticket. For the exit ticket, usually I'm using 3 to 1 if the time is really, running out. So I'm asking them to send a number in our meeting chat, 3 2 1 3 if you understood everything, 2 if you still have questions, 1 if I did not understand anything or what. So you will be able, you might consider to do this one before you end, because assuming that everyone understood the lesson by doing the activity, it's not good, because sometimes while doing the group activity, there are students who are overpowering, especially those who are really competitive. They will be answering all the questions on their own, even though they are having sharing, they won't be listening to those students who are not talking too much. So by doing this activity, you'll be able to see that who among the students did not understand your lesson or still have questions, so that the following day you'll be able to call them one by one. What are your questions? So you can ask them to send their questions privately, and then you'll be able to address their questions. Then after that, homework. So homework should not be a repetition of what they did during the first, you know, it may be, probably could be a repetition, but then what I'm doing is it's going beyond already what we did for the day. So we are done now identifying. So now my homework will be on your own. So using a diagram to the right, identify the parts and so on. So it's not the same as what they did in the group activity a while ago. So it's going beyond. But then actually you can use the same thing. Like if you had this I ask them to identify, and then your homework will still be identified. But then you have to consider that sometimes for homework, you might as well consider ask them to work on with something that you will be doing the following day. So probably you want them to use identifying pairs of angles already, because this is the thing that they will be doing tomorrow, and so on. So that's the first lesson presentation that I had. This is my next part. I think this was last year when I did functions. Same thing. My motivation was trivia, trivia of the day. So do you know what symbol is given below? And I make sure that, this letter E, they are found in their calculators, but then they don't mind it. So at least at the end of the day, they will be able to see, oh, that's letter E is something. There's a value for that. It's not just pi. So that E, that epsilon number, or epsilon, that's Euler number, is something with mathematics. So at least they will be able to, learn something beyond the lesson. So that's how I present my, or I get students' attention. So with through today's trivia. Next is same thing. I am presenting the learning target with the functions, standards, key vocabulary, essential questions, the agenda of the day. If you can see, I am always having this learning target with me because this is actually the suggestion of my previous administrator. And then when I had my next administrator observed my class, she told me that it's really good that you are presenting this to students so that they will know what will gonna happen at the end of at the end of the end of the day. So sometimes I do start with recapitulation or review, lesson review, wherein students will be reviewing what we had yesterday. And And what is good with this lesson presentation is it's different from my previous classroom observation presentation. In this observation, I asked the students to observe and take note in in each slide. So students, this is more of discovery learning because I am presenting them samples and non-examples of a certain concept, and they have to observe and take note of their observation, and then later on we will discuss those observations with the entire group and try to figure out if their observations are correct. So due for this activity, they will be able to realize that they did it correctly, they were able to analyze it correctly, and their learning is actually on point. So instructions, it should be written, and it should also be what is this? Yeah, it can be done. That's correct, Ma'am Lizelle. That's abstraction can also be done by students. Okay, and then this is how I did my last year observation. I asked them to observe, and there's a timer. Okay, a timer at the top of this slide, and students were looking at the timer while doing the observation. So I told them to observe, especially the X value and those red color. So what makes it a function when you are given with a set of ordered pairs? You know, they are doing this set of ordered pairs and looking at the X values. So they'll be able to see, oh, function if there is no repetition with X values. So if there are repetition in X, and therefore that's not a function when you're given a set of ordered pairs. Next is when you are given with a table. So look at those X, the red color in each table. So what do they represent? So is it a function or not a function? And they're actually given with timers as well. Timer will be shown to them. And then the mapping diagram. Mapping diagram, look at, I actually stated here, look at your X. So what do you observe with the X? All X's here are being mapped to exactly what is this? Element in the Y, while in the not function, one of the X's has two lines or two mapping. So that's made it not a function for this certain example. So students will be able to see that, oh, this is a function and this is not a function. And for graph, you can look at the what is this? The horizontal line test, vertical line test, sorry. The vertical line test, how many lines, the graph is with the red line, observe the blue line. So if you can see for the not a function, there are 2 points being intersected, and for the function, there's only 1 point being intersected. So that's actually also one of the my strategy on how to is it grade 8 math? Actually, yes, this is 8th grade math now. So 8th grade math ito. So that's for the first part of my lesson. Students are trying to look at things. And you know what? During our discussion, I was able to figure out that they were able to correctly identify what makes it a function and not a function, and they were able to make a generalization out of it. So because of these observations, and after doing that, next I am doing think group activity, think group share again. So for think group share, so they are now all tasked to identify whether each one of them is a function or not, and then they have to justify their answer based on what they learned from the previous activity. And students are really, really engaged with this one, because they will be able to apply what they learned from the previous activity. So also there's a timer. So the timer will tell them that if they are um, it's almost time or what. So this is the thing part. They individually have to answer this on their own. And then after that, the group part is they will be grouped. And actually I'm giving them their group assignment before the class begin the following day. So I usually do give their group members a day before that this will be the name of the groups for this activity, so that they later on, they can already plan out who will be the leader, the timer, and it will not actually take time for in your part to assign them who will be the this one or this one. And you'll be given 5 minutes to collaborate. Those groups with highest scores will receive a homework pass. And I actually use passes all the time when I'm giving prizes. It's not actually possible for us to give material things. Now we are practicing online classes, so I do usually use something to motivate them very well, so that they will be doing great things in this activity. So they're looking at homework passes. This homework pass, they can use that either that on that particular marking period, or the next marking periods. This is the group activity that I presented them to them a day before. So I told them that, okay, this group, blue group will be the following members, orange group, these are the following members, Gerald, green group, this will be the, and then I made sure that each of the group are distributed with students who can really speak English well, because they will be the facilitator of the group. Okay. And then that's it. They are now collaborating for 5 minutes. I will start a timer, and they will share whatever things they had when they did the individual group, the think part, and this is the group part. Okay. And then for the AHA part, if you can see, one of the members should send me your answers privately before I start with the AHA part, because when I will be asking them to share their answers, and then other groups will try to look at the answers of the other groups and just copy them or mimic them. So to avoid that, I ask them first to send their answers privately before we start with the sharing part. And then they will be discussing their answers and deliberate the lesson. So I still use what is this? I still use the collaboration board for Nearpad in doing my collaboration or my share part. And these times for elaboration, or the elaborate part for science, but it's more of abstraction. So this time I will be asking the students if they were able to get it correctly when they were observing the examples and non-examples of function and not functions. So they will be, and during that time that I was actually doing this classroom activity, I mean lesson activity, students unmuted themselves. Mr. Ledesma, I'm correct. That's correct, because when I try to look at the X values, the repeated ones, those with the repeated X, they are not functions, and the one without the X repetition, they are all functions. So that's actually how they responded to this abstraction part of my lesson. And also for the table, there is no repetition in x value. If there is a repetition, that's not a function. If there is no repetition, that's a function. And then in a mapping diagram, if more than one line for a certain number in your x will be mapped to a certain number in your y, so that would not be a function. And if not, if each one of them is mapped to a certain only one number to another number or another part of the diagram, so that is a function. After doing this, they were able to remember this the following day. So again, going back, I'm asking them, how do you identify whether a set of ordered pairs is a function? Okay. How do you identify if it's a table is a function, if a graph is a function, or if an equation is a function? So they will be able to identify them because they were able to figure it out on their own. So that's how I do it. Okay. And that's it. This time, I will now be presenting to them the answer. So based on the discussion, let's see if your answers are correct. For number one, it's a function. Number two, it's not a function, and function. And then after that, as usual, as I've told you, I'm always processing students' experience, not just experience, but also the content they learn for this certain lesson. So I am processing how did they find the activity, what part of the activity was hardest to do, or did they find any difficulty in doing the activity, or if yes, how did they overcome this one, and so on. Any question, and then exit ticket. Still 3 to 1. Then homework could possibly be done through quizzes. All right, I think that ends my presentation for my classroom observation ideas. I think, Ma'am Tina, can you join me now, and then let's try to answer some questions?
Yes, I'm back, everyone. All right. Hello, everybody. This is Christina Sinosa. I'm reading some good comments here, Mr. Ledesma, and um, I think you can see that in the Facebook page. So go ahead and answer those questions. There are so many hands that are actually clapping for you. I know that it's our first time and it's our first kick-off for our live tutorial. There will be more though. So when you ask questions earlier about how they actually do their classroom routines or whatever, some of them answered picture talk, think, pair, share, PowerPoint presentation, interactive applications, activities that gives hint or what is the lesson all about, using paper and pen, and etc. So go ahead and answer those questions that
Yes,
were
ma'am.
related to your
I'm actually looking
the
at the
last part.
question of Ma'am Romelin. Do you read that to your students? What do they mean? What does she mean now?
I think she was asking about it, the things that you do, like the district initiatives. For those who are in Asia or in any parts of the world, we have these district initiatives in the district we're in. We are required to tell the students about our standards, about the objectives of
Oh,
the lesson of the
yes,
day. So it is
actually,
like what we are saying about agenda box in Asia. So
that's
go ahead and
correct.
answer that, Mr. Ledesma.
Actually, that's correct, ma'am. That's actually a district-wide initiative in order for students to be aware of what gonna happen the entire class period. You will be presenting them the agenda of the day, so students will be able to know in this particular time what are they doing, so what activity they will be doing, what objective they are supposed to answer, what essential question they are supposed to meet at the end of the lesson, and what standards we are actually looking at for this particular lesson. And the key vocabulary, so at least they will be able to know that they will be meeting these words. So this is actually a district-wide initiative. So to answer that question, and yes, we really have to read them, not one by one, but then I am just actually telling them that, the today's lesson is understanding function, and this is the standard. And the vocabulary that you are supposed to, learn are set of ordered pairs, tabular forms, mapping diagram, graphs, and then the agenda would be the following. So you don't have to read each one of them, but you just have to present them that this is the agenda, this is the essential question. So, and this is the standard, and so on. So I hope I was able to answer that question, ma'am.
By the way, Mr. Ledesma, I wasn't able to congratulate you for a job well done tonight. Congratulations, by the way. Thumbs up and a round of
Thank
applause
you.
for you. I wasn't able to congratulate you with that. Um, I guess that standard also goes along with worldwide, because under the British curriculum, the American curriculum, the Philippine curriculum, you are actually bounded with standards in which these standards are used for your achievement tests. And that also applies here in the US. So worldwide, we apply it. And in the classroom worldwide, we are worldwide educators. We do that routine all the time. And routine matters. And that's what Mr. Ledesma actually have shown earlier. I told myself it is a grade 8 math because I wasn't really thinking about grade 8 math. I was thinking about college math already because I learned that in college. I wasn't able to learn that in my grade 8 is, I think, second year high school.
I
Or
think
maybe
na-learn
I
niya,
have
ma'am, and then
learned that
you
part,
just
but
forgot that.
just a little bit. Or maybe I forgot about it already.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and answer some questions, Mr. Ledesma.
Okay, so you're welcome, Ma'am Romelin. I was able to answer them. Let me see other questions. According to Ma'am Lizelle, the formulation of abstraction or generalization will be done by the students. That's actually one strategy as well. That's a good strategy that students will be able, to generalize everything on their own, based on their own. So what I'm doing is, that's why I am presenting them in a shorter way, and presenting them in this way, wherein students will be able to look back, because sometimes if they will be doing the abstraction, there are things that teachers should correct because they were not able to learn them correctly. So that's why you can present them in a way that, students at the same time doing the presentation, if they agree or disagree, but it should be done with the facilitation of the teacher. That's my own idea. But then I agree. Students should be done by the abstraction should be also done by the students. Agree that in abstracting the video that we are presenting to our students. That's correct. Okay. Okay. I think that's it, ma'am. May iba pa bang question? Hindi ko makita yung ibang questions eh.
Okay. Do you still have time sharing with them your how you lay out your certificate?
Probably bigyan ko na lang sila ng ideas paano, ma'am, but I won't be doing really,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
kasi
So
sa
go
tingin
ahead
ko,
and give them a little bit of glimpse how you lay out your certificate. Mr. Ledesma is actually very good at it. So I'd like him to share in eConnect on how he lays out his certificate. Laying
okay.
out of certificate is really very important. I'll go ahead and add you to the stream.
Okay, ma'am.
Take it all the way. Go ahead.
Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Wait lang. I'm actually trying to. Whew. So this time, I will be actually sharing with you my ways on, or my, how do I do the following. If you can see, these are samples of my work. So I did this during the Blazers Spy Fund Day, the certificate of our honor students, the program, certificate of excellence and the honors. So these are actually just samples of the certificates that I am doing for my students. I did not have a formal training about doing Adobe or any other publisher up, but I actually try to work on, and how I learned about this was I watch videos in YouTube, and then that helped me develop my skills in doing this. So, but I think the very important thing that you have to learn first, not just in layouting your certificate, but in doing PowerPoint presentation. If you can see in my presentation, um, the there are those things that are moving. You call them as animations or animated objects. I'm not sure if it is shown in your screen now. But then you can see the dog's tail is moving, the cat, the butterfly, and the sun outside. They are all moving, right? So this is actually the first thing that you have to remember when you are layouting and when you are doing your PowerPoint presentation. First is we will try to talk about the different types of pictures, or what do you call them? Is it types of pictures or the okay? My idea si Ma'am Marian. That's correct, Ma'am Marian. So we'll try to talk first about the types of pictures. We do have three. Actually, I am only knowledgeable about three. The very first thing that we know is the JPEG or JPEG. The next one is the PNG, and the next one is the GIF. Okay, so that's correct. So GIF is one of them. The one that is moving, you call them as GIF. That's animated. So we know as this JPEG or the JPEG. This is the usual picture format. Oh, okay, so that's the term is formats of pictures. Okay, the usual for picture format is what you call JPEG. It's actually the JPEG, and then the PNG. It's actually the one without a background. This is the very easiest way to define it. If you just want, for example, your picture without any background at all, and you can place it at the top of any other picture, you call that certain picture as PNG picture. And the GIF, that's correct, Ma'am. Is this Ma'am Mary Ann? The GIF is actually it's the animated picture. They are actually the animated pictures. So why is it important for me to discuss this one? Because all these things I have in my certificate, um, what others, posters, invites, they are really important if you want to have um, an object that has no background and doesn't cover your overall background. And if you can see the pie in here, okay, the pie is actually doesn't have any background. All other things here doesn't have any background. So all of them are actually PNG type of picture. And if you can see the medal here is doesn't have also a background. If you can see, I have our school seal at the back of the medal. So how did I do that? I'll do that later on. I'll explain that later on. And then, it's really important for you to know about the different pictures format. Because if you will be, for example, searching, okay, let's open a publisher. This is how I do. That's correct. It attracts the students, especially those little kids. That's correct, ma'am. Okay. Example. I'm not sure about this publisher. Okay. So, for example, you will be working on with certificates, and then the certificate will be about sports. So your design should be related to sports, right? And then you have to have the school seal, school logo. The school logo usually comes with the white background at the back of it. But if you want to remove that, what I am doing personally, I'm using Microsoft Word to remove it. Okay, to remove it. So let me insert our school logo. Insert pictures and then yeah, school logo. For example, I want my background will be black. Okay, so it should be home, page design, sorry, page design, background, and then you have to click more backgrounds and then solid format, and you have to choose your color. So that's an example. So now I have our school seal. At the back of it will be a black background. Okay. The next, I'll try to look for images. For example, I am I am doing a certificate or invite related to basketballs. So I have to um, look for the word basketball in Google and make sure if you want a PNG type of picture that if you want to copy it and paste it in your in certificate that the background will not be in included, you have to put basketball and the PNG letters. And it will give you images that are actually in PNG format. So PNG, let me just show it to you. You will be able to know that it's PNG if the back of it is, or you can see that there's a scale at the back of every image. Look at this example. Okay. So at the back of this image, this is actually scale. So this scale here signifies or means that your image is a PNG. PNG. Sorry. So if it's too large, you have to lessen the size. If you can see, there's no white background in there. You know, you can add style, like for example, you can have this one and then and then play it around, and then you do have like forward, bring to front. So this is how I'm doing my so, and then also it's your creativity, how you'll be able to insert, like for example, if you're looking for waves, okay, waves to serve as your to serve as the, what do you call this one, border of your certificate. So you can just look for waves design PNG, that it will give you a wave design that doesn't have a background. So this one, if you don't see the scale of the picture, then therefore that picture is not in PNG format. So you have to look for a picture in PNG format. So you have to look at a picture with a scale at its back. I hope I'll be able to find one. It's too hard to find one. Yeah, that's actually the disadvantage of using a black background, because you won't be able to find right away a picture format, a PNG format picture. So for example, this one. So if you can see, the back part of this picture is scaled. So then therefore it is in PNG format. So you'll be able to copy it and then paste it in your presentation, and then you can just make it bigger. You know. So this is actually how I am working on with my presentation. I mean my certificates. So I am not doing an exact, I mean, okay. So if you can see, I already have it there. So the wave, you call it wave. If you want us um, abstract design, you can also find one. You can also try to look for abstract design in the internet, like abstract background designs. Don't judge me of my design now, okay? Because we're trying to make a design on the spot. Okay. Which one? Which one? Which one? Which one? Which one? Which one? Okay, let's use this. So you can just type in abstract background design and then take note whenever you paste it there, you just have to go to format and then send it to the back so that all other, okay, will be at the top of this picture. So this is an example of how you working on with your picture. So now that's the main idea. You have to know the different picture format, the GIF. If you will be looking for GIF online, like for example, dog, and then you just put GIF, clip art, for example, GIF. If you will be looking for GIF, means you are looking for a picture that is animated. For example, this one. See, the tail of the dog is moving, and I will be placing it there. Sorry. If I will be placing it in my PowerPoint. Okay. So that is an example of a GIF animated picture. So if you will be looking for pictures and you want your presentation to look more, you know, what I will be using the word of Mary Ann, attractive. So you can actually use for what is this, GIF pictures, because that actually attracts your students attention while looking at your presentation. But don't just use, I mean, don't just use or overuse them, because sometimes the students will not be anymore looking at your presentation, but they will be looking at your pictures. Okay, so I think that's it. So let me just share with you sample of my how I am working on with my um, certificates. Like for example, this one. So I have a publisher, and then I'm actually using publisher most of the time when I'm working on with my certificates. And I am not sure why my laptop keeps on lagging when I'm opening my publisher. Okay, just wait for a while. You'll be able to see how I am working on with the school certificate, because usually from in our team, I am the one creating the certificates of our students when we do have events. Like for example, this one. So this is just a simple certificate for students. So if you can see at the back of it is the seal of the students. And do you see this yellow border at the bottom? Actually, that's just a rectangle. And what I did was to put something oval to, make it as if there's a circular emphasis on the assistant principal wording there. So it should be emphasis. So it's actually, I created an oval, a color white. That's why I used a white background on in here, just to, you know, give emphasis that it's a circular, a circular shape for this part of the certificate. And if you are, what is this? What's the term? I'm really slow. uh, if you are, nakalimutan ko anong term sasabihin ko. About the certificate of the unified. How did I do it, or how did I do the layout of our certificate? It's actually the same thing. So just give me few seconds. Right after this one, I will end my presentation. All right? Lapangit na siya. I think because the let me I think and don't you know that I am just downloading I will share you something. I'll show you some. I'll share you something. One of my secrets to have a good font style. I am just downloading them online. So you can just, for example, um, font style, font style free download. You can just download them online. Can go to 1001 free fonts. And then what you'll do is to select your font style design that you want to to place in your certificate or in the thing that you're working on. You can actually download them for free. Okay, so these are actually sample of font styles that you can use for your certificate, and you can just click download, and it will automatically download a zip. Let me just download a sample. Okay, let me download this one. It will download a zip folder. After you download a zip folder, when you click it, this will come out. And then all you have to do is to double click the thing inside the folder and click the word install. And then it will automatically go to your Microsoft applications, and you will be able to use it for free. The only problem there is you will not be able to use them in other computers that doesn't have that certain font style. So make sure that you download also in your other computers the font styles that you are using. So like for example this one. So this doesn't look good because of the font style that I use in this certificate is not present in this computer. And I think that's it. So I will end my presentation there. If you do have any question, the floor is open.
Mr. Ledesma, you deserve to have a round of applause again. I know that they could not give you that round of applause, but we really appreciated the way how you give them tantamount of information and tantamount talents, for them to be able to make the certificates. It's just a short time, but I know that they have learned a lot, and some of them were asking to me via personal chat if your tutorial is actually recorded. Yes, this is actually streamed live via YouTube and Facebook in eConnect, because we're not actually a public group. I know that you are more concerned, especially those in the US territory, about the privacy that you have when they see that your name is listed as an educator in there. So that's a part of our group's rules and regulations. It has to be private. And of course, to avoid spams. I see a lot of hearts. I see applause. Thank you so much, Mr. Ledesma, for sharing your expertise with us. And before I forget, just give me one quick one, maybe like 1 minute. Okay? Mr. Ledesma shared to us about certificate layouting and classroom observation strategies. Tomorrow, we will be having Sergeant Karen Williams, JROTC instructor of Ivanhoe Duracan High School, U.S. Virgin Islands. She is a retired U.S. soldier, a spiritual advisor, and she will be with us to speak about how teachers' well-being and mental health is taken good care of during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tomorrow is July 15 here in the Virgin Islands, 8 p.m. still, and July 16 in Asia, especially in the Philippines, 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay? Thank you so much, eConnect. This is your administrator signing off. Bye!